I am going to talk to you about the power shift. And how I'm going to do that is rephrase the language that we use and move from beneficiaries to partners. Now, this is just one example that I'm using for the purposes of a short and punchy talk, but I would challenge you to start thinking about the small things that you can do or the small ways that you can start rethinking the language that you use when you work with communities in international development. So we want to shift from help, for example, to support, because help has a very different meaning from support. So that's an example that I'm giving you that you could start working from. And then I'm going to tie that into how Alberta can reimagine our role in international development, all right? The goal is to shift power, because that is where everything stems from. Who has the power, who holds the power, and therefore has the resources and can make the decisions. So this is inverted pyramid. We have the power right on top there, but what are the smallest solutions that we can start with? And for me, I'm just starting with language. Let's shift from calling the communities that we work with and partner with internationally, calling them beneficiaries, and start calling them partners. And we're going to look at what that looks like. So what does it look like for us to call them partners? So I'll share from the work that we do in Guatemala. Our organization is based in Edmonton, and we build schools in rural Guatemala. I remember a few years ago, we went to officially open one of the schools that we had built. And as soon as the doors were open, the kids ran into the classrooms. They were screaming, they were happy. Some mothers were in tears because for years they had wished that they had a school in their community. The parents themselves mostly don't know how to read and write, but seeing a school, a standard classroom in their community was a dream come true for them, and they were able to imagine a different future for their children. As you know, Guatemala was decimated by years of civil war, and an opportunity was lost for most of the young people then to have an education. And in that moment, I thought, we provided the funding to build this school, but really the work, the dreams and the desires were from the community themselves. I would say that providing funding is the easy part. Like, we're not going to talk about what goes into getting funding for our organization specifically, because we are privileged to work with a funder who funds all our projects. So we don't need to fundraise. And that is an opportunity that I would want to continue to share with the sector, that there is an opportunity to partner with the private sector, for example, and diversify our streams of income and address this issue of funding. So for us as an organization, we just go to our funder and we say, our communities, we have 3 communities this year that need schools, and this is how much it's going to cost. And then they give us the money. So that's how privileged we are. And I want to acknowledge that it's not everybody who is in that position. And so I am truly grateful for that. And so in our story, I would say the funding was the easy part. But those communities in Guatemala are very hard to reach. Sometimes the trucks that carry the materials cannot go through or over the bridges that lead to the community. And so they have to stop maybe a kilometer from the community and offload all the construction materials from there. I cannot tell you how heartbreaking it was for me to hear that the mothers, the fathers, the teachers, school principals, the communities, the kids themselves have to carry cinder blocks around their neck, around their head here, to get the construction materials up to the construction site. It is unimaginable. And for me, I realized that they do this for themselves. They do majority of the work. And for us to even call them beneficiaries, for me in that moment, it changed my thinking. They are not beneficiaries of any of our benevolence. They are active partners in their own development. And so that really challenged my thinking in terms of how I thought about this. So can we go to the next slide, please? I forgot to tell you that. So we've already talked about children rushing into the school. Next slide, please, as well. Is it up? No. Sorry. Can we go to the previous one? Sorry. I'm looking at my computer, and mine is different from what's up there. All right. So one of the things that we have done is we do not go into a community to build a school until the community themselves have identified needing a school as one of their top 3 priorities. And we are not the ones that go in there. We have a local partner in Guatemala who work daily in those communities. The workers there are from the community themselves. So usually what happens when we go into the community, they have created their own plans using markers and colors, and they know exactly where everything is at, where they want the playground, where they want the principal's office, where they want the kitchen or the library. So they are just telling us what they want, and we are just there to listen. And what I have learned is that you need to be humble. None of this will work if you don't have the humility to say, the systems that we have may continue, even unintentionally, to perpetuate the systems that have caused oppression and struggle for some people. And so for me, humility is really important. So it's the humility to be able to listen, humility to say that we may get it wrong, and humility to say that we can learn something new. And to understand that our way is not the only way. It is a way, but it is not the way. And so for me, humility is really important as well. And just framing it this way for us really shifts that perspective from we are giving them something to they are telling us what they want. And then we are responding to that based on what we can provide. And we also understand that we are not in a position to provide everything. But what is the simplest thing that we can do? And what is the simplest thing that we can measure? And for our organization is we can build schools, yes, and we can match the numbers, enrollment numbers over, how many schools were built. But it is not the whole solution to all the problems that they face. Next slide, please. So the old model said that the donor would decide what they wanted to do with their money. It's their money, right? So if I have $1,000, I can decide where I want to direct that to and where I think it should go. But I know that we are shifting from that donor-driven model to, yes, we have some resources that we can support communities, but that also need to align with what communities want. So decisions should not be made here in the global north without the contribution, participation, and inclusion of the communities that we would like to partner with. It's important because when they're a partner, when we frame them as partners, we will ask ourselves if they are included. But if they're beneficiaries, then you're just deciding what you give them, when and how. But shifting that perspective to partners, you would say we cannot continue this conversation without them present at the table. And so that's the other change. Next slide, please. So the shift is when we first started building schools in Norway. So one of the things that we have done is we take some families from here to Guatemala after the schools are built, and we go into the communities. What I've seen is that people go there, and we have the mindset of, can I bring a hammer? What else can I bring to give them? But our model says we don't take anything into the communities because, first of all, you don't have enough to give everybody. There are some intended consequences when you go into a community, for example, and give a football to one kid and not the rest of them. You create jealousy. And so what we do is we really think about the shifts that we need to make from thinking in terms of how we are not causing harm. It takes a lot of thinking and collaboration to rethink how we do things and how we've always done them. So that's just an example of a shift that we have had in terms of what we do and how we work with these communities when we bring Albertans onto these trips. And what I've heard is After the trips, they do say that we went there thinking that we're going to help, we're going to contribute, but we're surprised by how much we learned. We realized that we have so much material wealth, but we have spiritual and relational poverty that is in abundance in Global South. And so it becomes mutual transformation. It's not just us going there to make a contribution materially, but we're also going there to learn from these communities in the things that they have also gotten right. For example, those two things that I have mentioned. So next slide, please. So when one community told us, for example, that their priority keeps looking at her watch, and that is totally throwing me off. All right, I think the last slide is the most powerful one. So I would like to go to that slide so that I am right on time. But anyhow, why does this reframe matter for Alberta? Why is it important that we change the language that we currently use that is part of the old system that we need to dismantle when it comes to international development? Because Alberta has something unique to offer to the world. We have a rich history and culture of Indigenous peoples that's rooted in resilience and reconciliation that we can tap into. We are home to immigrant communities, for example, like my community from Africa, who understand colonization, displacement, and how to rebuild communities. So, and we're also home to organizations like us who are making global impact and have that experience and perspective that other people who are not in the sector may not have. And so we have an opportunity to share our experiences and our learnings to raise awareness with more Albertans. Real leadership is measured by how much power we give away, not how much power we hold. So could we change our thinking from how many dollars did we spend on a project? How many people did we impact? How many man-hours did we spend building a school to what are the shifts we made when it came to power? How much power were we willing to cede so that we would create, I guess, a partnership that is equal, where everybody is equal at the table? So if Alberta embraces this kind of leadership here and abroad, I believe that will not only transform our communities, but also that will make an impact globally. So my closing call to action is the people we've called beneficiaries are architects of their own futures. Our role is not to design their tomorrow, but to stand beside them as they build it. The true measure of impact isn't how much we gave, but how much power we shifted. Let Alberta's legacy in international cooperation be this: not the dollars raised, not the projects completed, but the power we shared. Because the future we want is already alive in the communities we serve. The real question is, will we have the humility to follow their lead? Thank you.